Michelle, I'm just going to repeat what you just said. We have so much great content. I'm just going to dive right in. I hope it's okay. I'm going to do the most lightningest round of introductions for our folks, and I'm going to lead you over to the QR code because all of their bios are on there. But this is such a powerful group right here that I just want to dive right in. So up on stage with me, I'm so proud to have Krishna Powell, founder and CEO of HR for Your Small Biz. Alwyn Dias, lead consultant and coach from Carruthers Consulting. Amy Flynn, who I just met and got a quick kiss, right? Not kick, a kiss. Amy Flynn, who's the manager of de&i at Insperity. And Oscar Tobacia, senior offshore wind engineer and offshore and coastal engineering, Atlantic Shores Offshore Wind, and it is so great to have you all. So I am so in awe already of what we've learned today from the first fireside chat. I heard intentional listening, I heard multi-generational learning, but the thing I heard and resonates so much with me is it's about your people. Because without your people, you have nothing, right? So let's get started. So if it's okay, Krishna, I'm going to start with you,
okay,
all right?
Sounds good.
So we are in a time when acknowledging and celebrating one's uniqueness and individuality is encouraged, and in some cases, some might say mandated. This renders some people afraid to say anything out of fear of misstepping or offending others. So we go to the golden rule. That used to be our guide. Does the golden rule still work?
Well, how many of you remember the golden rule? What's the golden rule? Exactly. Well, I would like to say in 2024, we need to live by the platinum rule. And the platinum rule is treat others how they want to be treated. Because what works for Krishna may not work for Jennifer. What works for Jennifer may not work for Amy. What works for Amy. So this is why we need to realize and think, what do you need from me? What do you want from me? And deliver just that. A lot of times we get caught up into the way things used to be, how it was for us. Krishna, when I came into the workplace, no one helped me. It was sink or swim. Well, if it wasn't right then, what makes it right now? Treat people the way they want to be treated. Meet them right where they are with no judgment. Then you will see the progress be made in the relationship, in the engagement, in the collaboration, because they know, I belong here with you. You are accepting me just as I am.
Krishna, thank you so much. And you know, the other thing that I'm hearing this morning, and I'm so thrilled, diversity, equity, inclusion, and the belonging. I'm a firm believer. If you don't hit that B at the end, you've missed the mark completely, right? Absolutely. So now, it used to be that one would ask themselves upon meeting new people, all right, well, how would I like to be approached? But now, your platinum rule is changing the game a little bit. What is the actual approach? What exactly would you say when meeting someone for the first time?
So when meeting them for the first time, usually I go into, how can I support you? What do you need from me? Because a lot of times, especially you'll find sometimes with younger professionals, they don't know or they're not volunteering the information. You need to let them know it's okay, that I want to know what you need, how I can assist you, how I can support you. And then from there, you will find and go, well, I really don't know. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm not sure about how things work here within the organization. That's how the conversation starts taking place. So upon meeting someone, I just go right into, tell me a little bit about yourself. And then tell me how I can support you with what it is that you have going on. That right there, they go, again, I see a physical, almost relaxation and deep breath that they take.
I love that, Krishna. You know, you bring up someone who's just starting to work for you, maybe someone of a younger generation who you're maybe mentoring. I'm going to dare say that since this is a for and not-for-profit conference, I've posed that same question from a nonprofit perspective to for-profit and saying to them, what can I do for you? And I tell you, sometimes I have to pick them up off the floor because no one has ever asked me that question before, right? It's always, nonprofit, you're a for-profit, you make a lot of money, we'll take, whatever you have to give, instead of saying, tell me, for-profit person, what can I as a nonprofit do for you? And you talk about belonging, you belong together, forging partnerships. So, Krishna, thank you very much. All right, we're gonna go to Alwyn. Alwyn, so as mentioned before, the concept of acknowledging and celebrating each individual is key to building a healthy and inclusive workplace culture. And sometimes that diversity is obvious. How do you create a space that allows people to comfortably share their not so obvious and in some cases invisible diversity?
Sure, thank you.
Yeah.
As individuals, as people, we have layers. Multiple layers. And we need to understand that when we're meeting somebody, we're just beginning to go through a layer. Myself, I was born with a condition called neurofibromatosis. It's a rare condition, hits 1 in 3,000 people, and it creates a lot of tumors in the body. And there's different types and versions of the condition. Mine definitely manifests in tumors that you can see. So when you first meet me, people don't tend to see that I feel pain every day, that I need to lean on things in order to stand for periods of time, and that I'm really self-conscious about my back. Because when you get to know me, you'll notice that I'll have a bit of a hunchback. And that played a huge role going through my career, especially when I started out. I was more concerned with that and how people saw me than who I was and what my development needed to be. And I started to pretend to be something else that I wasn't. And that did not work. When I became able to embrace myself and my story, that allowed me to go forward. Now, how does that help in regards to approaching somebody who has a disability that is visible or not visible? It's by asking the question of somebody, you're putting them at a vulnerable spot, yes. But by not asking the question, you're keeping yourself in a safe space. In order to learn and understand just the diversity of people, we have to become vulnerable ourselves and be comfortable with, I'm not sure how to ask this question, but I'm going to say that I don't know how to ask this question, and preface your intention. Let them know, what you're looking for, and then let them answer. By doing so, you're doing something that nobody ever really does. Meeting them halfway, meeting them where they are. Similar to what Krishna just spoke about. Meet them where they are and ask them what is it that can make this more of a norm for you? Or what isn't a norm for you here? What can be comfortable? What can be shared? Just that small, authentic, transparent, vulnerable interaction will create dividends of trust going forward. So I would just encourage that, asking the questions and learning isn't about that person being vulnerable. It's about ourselves being vulnerable and asking those questions.
Alwyn, thank you so much. In my practice, we talk about, how do you approach? How do you make that kind of uncomfortable approach when, sorry. Good sign language, sorry. When you're just meeting someone and, maybe something is obvious and maybe something is not. And it's this thing of cautious curiosity, right? And it's that respect and vulnerability that someone is willing to show someone that they don't know. to say, and as you said, Alwyn, I don't know how to ask you this question, but I'm going to ask you anyway because I need to get to know you. So, Alwyn, please share with us. Tell us exactly an approach that you wish we could tool everyone with when they're approaching someone who they want to be cautiously curious about.
So I've had multiple interactions with that personally. Everything from somebody bringing me into a conference room, literally asking what's up with my back. Those were the exact words. And then I've had people just completely ignore it but stare at it. Then I've had others just say, you know what, I noticed that you struggle at times walking, or I noticed that you have, a hump on your back. Can I just, what's the story with this? Or what's going on? It's make them your words and just have them be sincere. If you formalize them, you lost the interaction. If you try to manufacture the HR terminology, you've lost the interaction. But you have to use your words and your authenticity in asking that question. So to answer your question, saying, how do I ask that question or how do you approach? I go back to become vulnerable with the situation and ask the question that's coming from your heart to the other, because they're exposing their heart and their vulnerability by just showing up.
And can I add to that?
Sure, Krishna.
I love what Alwyn was sharing in regards to how to ask the question, but be receptive to the answer. A lot of times we have in our mind, and when we hear the answer, we go, I've never done that for anyone else. That's too much. But wait a minute, you asked me what I needed. Now I'm telling you what it looks like for me, and you're going to tell me what you've done for everyone else or how no one else has ever done it. No, it doesn't work that way. It's, I understand, I heard you, let me see what I can do. Let go of those things that you've done in the past or you've seen others do, because that's what makes those of us with visible or invisible disabilities go, I'm not going to say anything because they're going to make me feel like, or, oh, well, we have to make this accommodation for Krishna. Oh, thank you for putting me on the spot. Why don't you just make the accommodation, and then people will figure out who it's for. But those are the things that happen, and I hear leaders go, well, I've never done that before. Well, just because it's never been done before doesn't mean you can't do it. So be open to whatever that looks like for that person to figure out, let me see if I can implement that. Let me see if I can make that adjustment. And that's it.
Love that. So that goes back to our first fireside chat that said, see me. See me in all my glory, see my color, see the brace I have on my ankle, see my tumors, and see the bad back that I have. But then on the flip side, you also have to say, if someone approaches you with such vulnerability, be open to answering them because they just want to learn, right? All right, thank you so much, Amy. You have an important role at Insperity, which is to help companies create and nurture DEI initiatives that are relevant, and sustainable, right? No fly-by-nights. Please share with us how you go about doing that when each and every company differs so vastly. And can you share with us some helpful hints as some of us are either starting, thinking about, in the midst of our journeys?
Yes, thank you. Thanks so much. Hi, everybody. First, I want to start with one thing that I think all of our organizations and all of our industries actually have in common. And it leads in from our earlier discussion. It's really about psychological safety. And I'd say the vast majority of what we're talking with our organizations about is about psychological safety. So it's being intentional about creating environments where people feel that they can express who they are, that they can have conversations, that they are heard, but the intentionality around it is really, really critical. Before any of our clients set out down the road of, talking more, deeply about bias or microaggressions or allyship and so on, we really want to make sure that the psychological safety is your foundation. It's the core. It's so critical. So I just wanted to start off with that because it's what we're doing, it's what we're talking about, and it really is such a big, big topic right now, for sure. So critical. And we meet with many, many organizations. So clients from size, maybe 5 people in the organization, all the way up to the hundreds and even thousands with some of our enterprise clients. With our operation with de&i services, we are really focusing on how to help each client move from where they are, and literally where they are authentically, and moving through their de&i journey. We'll really want to start with our leaders. So starting with that top leadership, and you're going to hear more about that later on today, but just wanted to put that out there that the communication from our executive teams is so important. It has to be there. We've learned a lot through our journey as a de&i services team and what has worked really well and what doesn't work. What works is when you have that top leadership commitment and it is really carried through the entire organization with de&i, and you have a real a strategy behind it, you have a framework, and you've got ways to measure it and be accountable. Oftentimes, our clients will start with really surveying their employees. Well, what are employees thinking? What are they feeling? And it'll be an anonymous. So to Mary's point earlier, I think you had mentioned, starting off with an anonymous survey and being able to come up with recommendations based on what people are saying and how they're feeling, knowing the demographics of your organization, and really being able to listen to people. That is so, so important. Once you have that, and you have that survey and you have some recommendations, and then we're moving on to how can we implement this? So maybe it's, creating a de&i statement. Who are you? What do you stand for? That's real. It's not something that is put on a website and we, post it in different places, but there's nothing behind it. But it's something that is created, hopefully with many different employees within that organization. And it's a living, kind of breathing piece that's really important to the organization. And continuous learning has been brought up. And this is something that, as an educator myself, my background is in education, having come from the higher education space, starting my career in the community colleges. Ongoing education is critical. And the key to this, and I think what we have really learned and what we, I think, hopefully do really well now, is educating, training, but then how do we make it live? Because it's not really enough just to have a training on unconscious bias or microaggressions or whatever topic that we're focusing in on, and then leaving it. I feel strongly, and my team feels very, very strongly, that this follow-up is really important, and how we work with our managers, our mid-level managers. That is critical. To be able to have the next steps of how do we make sure that what we're doing is really happening. And that could be changing the way our team meetings are run. It could be looking really closely at our one-on-ones. How are those really happening? What questions are we asking? What kind of space, are people entering with us when we're having our one-on-ones? It's thinking about our mission and our values to really create that sense of belonging. So again, I could go on and on for hours, I think, on this. And every organization is different, but wanted to just start with some initial ideas.
Amy, thank you so very much. You talk about psychological safety. And initially when I would hear that, I'm thinking, of your team. Does your team feel safe? Talk, if you will, a little bit about, what about leadership's psychological safety? Because don't they count too?
They sure do, absolutely. And that's been some work we've been able to do with some of our leadership teams. Because just because you're a leader, it doesn't mean that you feel safe coming into a space at all, right? So being able to have sessions where even our C-suite executives are coming together and saying, this is how I'm experiencing this having questions that we're able to walk through as a team, and having time where we're able to spend together is so important. Oftentimes, it can come down to literally that, having time that we're spending together. We're all running so fast. Everyone is so busy. We're in an environment now where we're in Zoom meetings and then we're clicking off and then we're running to the next thing. And I was in a session actually 2 days ago with one of our clients, and it was a listening session. And there was something that was going on, and our team came in, and we had some breakouts to really hear what was going on within the organization. And the leadership said, well, sometimes I feel that I just don't get to know one another. We don't have the chance to be able to do that. We're, again, leaving these meetings, we're moving on, and that's really it. I don't get to know more about this person's life and what, all of their dimensions of who they are and what is important to them. And that is so important. It's such a foundational piece, and it seems like kind of a simple thing, but we skip it a lot. So really, really important. And again, we start with the leaders with that conversation, because guess what? Ultimately, leaders set the tone, right? They set the tone for what that culture is going to be like, so they've got to have it themselves.
All right, Amy, because you brought this up, what happens if leadership is tone deaf? Right? And you
That's
are
the
that
problem.
person. You are that
Yep.
person who is entry level. You're maybe that young person who just graduated from college and you're fresh and you have ideas and you see something going, oh, not so right.
Yes.
What's your advice to that person to get that word up to leadership?
Yeah. Well, hopefully there's going to be some sort of platforms for you to be able to voice your thoughts and opinions and so on. But, find someone who is a champion. Find someone who is a leader, a mentor. That's why mentorship programs are so critical, sponsorships. And that's another, strategy that can be something that you can do, a real action point to create that, so that you have someone that can help to elevate what you're saying and what your concerns are. That's allyship. And finding spaces where you can do that. Because if leadership is, not hearing it right away, they will. And you want it to be in a place, in a way that it's well received, and it can be hopefully proactive before there is a real issue within the organization. But finding a champion is really important, I think.
Perfect.
Can I add to that real quick? I love what she was sharing. We have to, as leaders, create opportunities over and over again for people to share with us at their own pace. Sometimes we think, well, I asked you the question, just give it all to me now. Well, depending on what's going on with them, they may not be in the headspace they're still processing the diagnosis. They're still processing the challenge that they have. They're still trying to figure out what exactly do they need. And so create these opportunities and walk the talk. A lot of times we go, oh, I have an open door policy. But then we get mad if that employee decides they don't want to share with us and they go share with another business. But I'm their manager. I can't believe they didn't come to me. But you said you had an open door policy across the organization. So does it matter who they shared the information with? Or does it matter that I got the information, now I know what action to take? Again, think about those opportunities. Be willing to change your policies. I recently worked with a leader who said, Krishna, I'm upset. And I said, okay, what's going on? I can't believe this new professional, she's only been here for 2 years, and she asked for a sabbatical. She's only been out of college for X amount of years. What's she know about a sabbatical? And I said, whoa, time out. I didn't know a sabbatical was based off of age. I didn't know a sabbatical was based off of you have to be here for, I said, does your policy say you need to be here for 5 years for it? No, but I still think she's too young. You have not lived her life. There are some people who are 30 years old that have lived the life as if they are 60. And they may need space to take a moment to pause and step to the side and do whatever needs to be done and come back. So be open even to changing your policies as you're looking for ways to create that psychological safety for your employees and for yourself. It's okay to pause, as she said. It's okay to take a step back and say, I need you to cover me right now because I have a lot going on. I'm not able to talk about it, but can you help me? That's all sometimes that you need to do for them to go, okay, now I can do this. Now I can come back and be 110% instead of a fraction or a piece of myself. And then 5 days later, 2 weeks later, you find me crying and upset. We're all going through different challenges. Not because of the pandemic, but just because, as the young people say, life be lifing.
Thank you so much. So I intentionally saved you, Oscar, for last because you're pretty close to living our dream, right? Your work involves a joint venture between two huge and internationally renowned companies, which enables you to bring such a unique perspective to this panel. You've been instrumental to Atlantic Shores in creating a DEI initiative. Can you please tell us about it? And now I'm going to ask you two of the hardest questions. One is easy. What's been the best outcome? And here's the tough one. What's been the biggest challenge? Oscar.
Sure, thank you for that. Thanks everyone for sharing. Those are really amazing shares. And before I go on, your ESL story really spoke to me because moving from Colombia, I was that ESL kid when I was 12, so that really spoke to me. So at Atlantic Shores, we're very proud of our DEI group. It's entirely employee-driven, so basically volunteers. So my actual title at work is I'm a senior offshore installation engineer. I've been in the energy sector for about a decade, but DEI has been a passion of mine. I joined Atlantic Shores about a year and a couple of months ago, and now I'm co-leading it with a colleague. The DEI group started in 2020, which is almost as old as our joint venture is. And it started with the mission to identify unconscious bias, to cultivate a workspace that's rooted in respect, and really just to foster a place where people could be themselves. So now, fast forward to now, the group, and it used to be just a couple of people, and now it's about 20% of our workforce, so it's over 50 people. And we have really, really cool activities that we do. One of our favorite ones is our company-wide book club and media club. So it's basically we create a space where we can talk about books that are DEI related. We talk about climate change, climate justice, social justice, gender pay gaps, all the topics that have to do with this. We really create a space where we can exchange information, where we can learn about each other, where we can trade ideas, and get to know each other in a way that then when it comes to the work, we know each other in a way that's very deep.
Personal.
So that's one of the things that we're most proud of. One of the things that's challenging about working in a company that's so global with people from all over the world, centered on a project in New Jersey, is that it's hard to gauge how far along everyone is in their DEI journey, because as you can imagine, one state, even in the US, one state to another is gonna be, the perspective is gonna be different. So let alone from one country to another. And we're a company of, our parent companies are French and Dutch, and people that are from all over the world. So then gauging that, where to start, how far along everyone is challenging, but it's also an opportunity because it gives us a sense of, okay, what's our baseline? Where do we need to focus our attention? How do we educate where there's knowledge gaps? And that's been really exciting too, because we've been given a lot of leeway to try things. We've had guest speakers come out and talk to us about diversity. And it's opened up for like challenging conversations and maybe a little bit uncomfortable, but this is how we grow, right? And we're really given a lot of latitude in that sense. And to Amy's point, like, we have a direct line of communication with our executive team. We have, they rotate in the DEI group as a sponsor, so that way we can communicate what we want to drive forward and they make sure that it happens. So there's a lot of buy-in from our executive team members on leadership. So it kind of cascades down to everyone else in the company, and it really, truly is like a core of our organization.
Did I not say that Oscar's living our dream? It's amazing, amazing. So Oscar, the challenges that you pivoted and said they're actually exciting opportunities, I love that. Talk to us a little bit about this consistent, lifelong learning with DEIB. What are your thoughts?
I mean, yeah, this is something that's not just important for the workplace, right? This affects everyone in your daily lives. And at the end of the day, it's important to have key performance indicators and measure surveys and measure attendance and measure all these things. But really, it's all about how we treat each other, how we recognize ourselves in each other, how we see someone's struggle, how we celebrate people, how we relate to one another. And I think with these initiatives that we have, I think that's what it is about, relating to one another. Even though you may be completely from opposite places, I think that's probably why it's one of the favorite initiatives, because it does allow for that connection between people. And I think that's really what it matters. It's really just people-based.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Did I not tell you that these panelists were awesome? So I want to close my formal questions and open the floor to any questions for our panelists. Anybody? Come on now, don't be shy. Yes.
Yeah, several of the companies that I've worked with have business resource groups. They have different terms, ERGs, employee resource groups. They're all effective in regards to acknowledging diversity. The issue that comes to pass that is a challenge is, where does the behavior of inclusion come in? And then even more difficult is, where's the equity part in the implementation? So yeah, I've worked with several, and they're strong organizations or groups to have within a company. However, the challenge is does leadership play a role in allowing the equity and the implementation of what they're trying to do happen?
Sorry. We have 7 business resource groups within our organization. And before beginning to, because it's employee volunteer, right? We received such great, I want to say, support from our executive leaders, to the point where we have executive sponsors and then we have executive ambassadors. Our executive ambassadors are one of our executives, including the CEO of our company, right? So I have found that the business resource groups add such value to the organization and the communities we serve, right? So I leverage them a lot to join us in, ventures such as, job fairs, right? Because it really is, it demonstrates the beauty of your organization, right? But another beauty to me, another add plus that they bring along is their perspectives, right? Like how they view things, and it's not just, and that's the beauty of all of us, right? The fact that we all have our own lens and we can bring that beauty to whatever we do. So have you found within your organizations, if you do have the business resource groups, do you have that kind of buy-in, meaning from executives?
It varies. It varies. You mentioned job fairs, and here's an example where it isn't that it weakens the effectiveness of a business resource group. You can bring individuals from those groups to a job fair, and they can get a lot of candidates that are powerful. But do those candidates make it to the office where they get interviewed? Do they get acknowledged as part of the pipeline? Or do they get siphoned out completely because of whatever reason that knocks them out? So yes, it's important, but these groups, I believe, would feel more empowered if they get to see the fruit of their work in action.
I would also add, too, that that's where executive sponsorship is critical. We've worked with actually, we had a new client recently that said, oh, we have these ERGs, also known as employee resource groups, and we're not really moving the needle here. It's not really happening. Come to find out, there were different understandings of what the employee resource group meant. They didn't have a charter. They didn't have executive sponsorship, so there was no communication between the group and the executive team. So you've got people spinning their wheels in both places and not a lot of communication. So I would really strongly advise having that sponsorship.
I just want to add that at Atlantic Shores, we have our parent companies, as I mentioned earlier, and we have in the de&i group a lead that's representing EDF and representing Shell, and then they both bring in ideas to our group, and then we're able to tailor and take what we want for our organization and not follow it strictly what our parent companies have, but just tailor it to ours and really make it so that it works for us. So we're given a lot of, as I said, latitude in that sense, and it gives us a lot of empowerment to even make mistakes, right? Because this is a learning process. Sometimes you'll miss the mark, but we're at least finding the courage to pursue difficult topics, conversations, and pushing this forward. So
You got to take the risk to move forward. Excellent. Yes. Your mic is on its way.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
My name is Yvette Mouton, and I work for Atlantic Shores, as well as Oscar. I have the privilege and honor of sitting on the DE&I team as well, and Oscar, you're doing a great job, so thank you. And thank you for NJBIA and Michelle for your stellar event. It's very good. Thank you kindly. So I have a question for Amy and any of the other panelists who would also like to contribute to the answer. I have a question regarding the recent Supreme Court decision, Students for Fair Admissions versus Harvard University in North Carolina. What recommendations or strategies are you recommending to corporations, colleges, et cetera, to manage and work around this recent Supreme Court decision that addressed the Equal Protection Clause and how it relates to targets and set-asides, and what do you suggest that can be done to continue to keep our foot on the gas but still be in compliance with the latest decision? Thank you in advance for your answer.
Yes, thank you. That was a continues to be a very hot topic, I would say, with our clients who are thinking, what do we do now? Like, we're hearing this, we're hearing DE&I, we're hearing the Supreme Court decision has really changed how we're approaching DE&I, and how do we meet in the middle somehow, I guess, in a sense. And the way we're working with our clients, to be honest, hasn't changed that much at all. Because of the fact that, when we'd be talking with our clients about diversity and diversity initiatives and recruiting and sourcing, it really was about that. It was about how are we going to be sourcing? How are we creating relationships that are new, that are different, that really expose us and provide access to more people? It was always about that. And it was never about quotas or targets or that kind of language necessarily. So I think when we continue down this path that, things are changing constantly, as we know, if we think about it in that way, as how are we creating more space? How are we thinking about our relationships in a deeper way? It's not just about putting jobs out on websites and I'm going to put this on this website and so on. How are we thinking about our communities, our partnerships, and being creative within that? Because there is a new reality in how it affects. There are, I think many different legal decisions that have come down around this and that we need to be aware of. So I'd say keeping it in that frame and knowing that inclusion and belonging it's not going away. This is not going away. The need for people to feel represented, included, and feel that sense of belonging is never going to change. So just how we go about it.
Can I add to that?
Absolutely.
So I've done a bit of research and I found that from those decisions, all organizations went to their employment attorneys and asked, how do we protect ourselves? By doing so, you're disqualifying the whole purpose of why we are up here. So with leadership, again, with the executive leadership, there needs to be a step forward in saying, regardless of what is happening, we are holding the value of DEI close, and we are wanting there to be a sense of belonging.
Love it. Thank you.
And I would like to add, so I have had the opportunity and do have the opportunity where literally in my work with dealing with the multi-generational, multicultural workforce, I've worked with leaders in China, France, Singapore, South Africa, we'll be going to Ghana. It doesn't matter, and they don't have these DEI policies, but what they do have are people. Everybody wants to belong. And see, for the first time in history, we have something that has never occurred before. We have 5 generations in the workplace. So you have everyone from a 19-year-old to a 70-year-old, and they're not all holding hands and singing Kumbaya. And that's okay. We got to make it okay that we're sometimes not going to get along. I have 3 girls. I gave birth to them, and I don't always like them kids. So what makes you think your employees are always going to like each other? But I do understand that even though my daughters have a different value system, raised with same parents, but she's into gentle parenting, and another one is into I call her my Lisa Bonet of the Cosby Show. She's still trying to figure out where she wants to be and have all these certificates. Regardless, we can still come together and be a strong family, a strong unit. And so as he said, it doesn't matter what the law says in regards to, we've gotten rid of this policy. What do you value? Do you value your employees? Do you value the fact that you have employees that represent your customer base, that look like your customer base, that understand and say, I can relate. And even if I don't always get it, I respect it. I value and appreciate you. That's the bottom line of this. So they can take away the term diversity. They can take it away all day long. It still does not diminish its importance to you, your business, your leadership, to anything that you do. Because if you want to be successful, if you want to thrive, if you want to be the latest and greatest and have innovation, creativity, engagement, collaboration, then you better embrace it. Because they need you just as much as you need them. But until you say everybody's welcome to the table, regardless of our differences, and we're going to figure this thing out, then none of it's going to matter. And you will always struggle. So don't worry about what they've decided to do. What do you value? What matters to you? Where do you want to go? And that's what inclusion and belonging looks like. It's that simple. Come on, baby, have a seat around the table. You welcome here too. That plain.
Excellent. So our time has come to a close, but what I would like to say is you are a powerhouse panel. You've shared with us so deeply today, and thank you so much. And each and every one of you brought us back to this. First of all, let's just say the DEI, we're in, we have an opportunity to rebrand it now. It is about your people, and it's going to bring us right back to, you don't believe in DEI-B? Here's what it really is. I'll circle back. It's about your people, because without your people, you have nothing. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to NJBIA.
Well said, a lot to think about. Thank you so much. And, you know, I just want to, because I always have to share, right? But that whole thing about ingraining into your workforce and culture, right? DEI isn't something that sits out on the side. So we started our DEI journey at BIA just a little bit before COVID, and then COVID, you know, had its way with all of us, et cetera. And then we realized that we were trying to, however the saying goes, walk the walk, walk the talk the walk, however way that goes, right? So here we were trying to engage companies in DEI and wherever they were on their spectrum and everything, and we kind of stepped back and said, you know, time out, pause. We don't have our own freaking strategy about DEI at BIA, and we need to do something about that. And very proudly, we did, and we spent over 2 years from the bottom up, some of the top down, right? But we actually have a culture statement as part of our vision, mission, values, culture statement, right? Talks about DEI. We have goals, we have measurable goals, and we go back and we look at those goals. And those goals transcend through everything we do, from our membership to our board, to our vendor relations, to our staff. And so, you know, we're not as far along as we want, but our journey, at least we're on the journey, we're on the spectrum, and we're proud of that. And so I think the piece of it is being part of your culture is so critically important. DEI isn't just an office at the corner that, you know, you go take an issue to once in a while. It's a horizontal that runs through everything we do. All right, time for another break. So we're gonna give you 10 minutes this time because we're so generous, okay? We'll see you back in 10.